Welcome to the Big D Speaks. Today we are going to be looking at a little clip from The Overlap. Shout out to The Overlap. Fantastic show. About Roy Keane talking about Brian Clough. The great Brian Clough. Legendary manager of Derby County and Nottingham Forest. Two-time winner of the European Cup. The old European Cup, that is. The best England manager we never had. Anyway, you all know who he is. A little funny story Roy Keane's going to talk about, and he's also going to be talking about how he made his debut for Nottingham Forest. Anyway, I hope you like this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. Here we go.
What was your first interaction with Brian Clough like? What was it like? You say you're messing around a bit.
Well, I didn't really see Brian Clough because pre-season I was obviously with the younger players and the first-year pros and the reserves. So
what about when you got towards the first team?
My first involvement with Brian Clough was probably the real proper chat I had with him would have been when I made my debut.
Right.
Pre-season I was away with the reserves. I was lucky when I was at Forest, and because I was I was full-time training, so I was feeling great. I thought, Jesus, amazing. And I played a couple of friendly matches, and as you do pre-season with the reserves, and I scored a few headers. And it was only years later on, I speak to Martin and he said, apparently Brian Clough would love players who could head the ball, love players who can head it. And I scored, I think, a couple in a reserve match, like a friendly match in front of him. And so I must have been winning him over, the fact I was getting forward, and like my Forest career, getting on the end of things. And he would, obviously, I was, like you do when you're manager, you're watching players, you're looking, what's he got? And then the first game of the season, Forest on the Saturday, Forest played at home to QPR. I think they drew with them. And the reserve teams were playing Monday night. And then Forest, the first team, were read to Liverpool on the Tuesday. And Liverpool were obviously really strong at the time. And I was used to put the team up on the Monday for the reserves. And I was sub for reserves on the Monday night. And I was delighted. I thought, reserves, sub for the reserve. Brilliant progress already. I've only just come over. I get on for about 10 minutes in the reserve match. And apparently some of the staff, Brian Clough, they'd already left with 10 minutes to go. So I played 10 minutes of reserves. I was delighted. I've always said we're even for a few pints after the game, with the reserves. And I came in on the Tuesday morning, so I played 10 minutes for the reserves. Delighted with myself, made a bit of progress already. And I was told, you're going up to Liverpool tonight. The team already gone up. You're following them up with Ron Fenton and Brian Clough. We picked Brian Clough up on the way of Derby to Liverpool.
In the car?
Yeah, me, Phil Starbuck, and Ron Fenton was the assistant manager. We picked Brian Clough at his house. We go in. I remember sitting in his house, and he comes down. He says, I remember he gave me a pint of milk. But I thought I'm going up. I thought I'm going up for the experience of being with the first team and I helped the kit man. We see lots of clubs do that with young players. And he came in. I remember he gave me a pint of milk, and I went, I said, I don't like milk. He says, you better drink that. He said, I'm putting the bottles out. We're going through the pint. I went up and met the players, and I got to the stadium at Liverpool, and I was putting the gear out with the kit man. Brian Clough said, what are you doing? I said, I'm just putting the gear out. He went, no, you're wearing that tonight.
Did you start?
I started at Liverpool on the Tuesday night.
Wow.
On the Monday, I went out, had a few crazy, 6-7 pints. The Tuesday, I got and played at Liverpool. And Liverpool, obviously Barnes and Ronnie Whelan and all these boys. And players came over and were introducing themselves to me, because I wasn't even in the dressing room with them. Hadn't even gone, had a training session with them. I played on the right side of midfield. But what he did say to me,
the milk up.
He said the first thing really he said to me regarding football, and I made a career out of it. He just said, you're putting that on. He says, I've seen you pre-season. I was like, but I wasn't that intimidated by Brian Clough because I was young and innocent.
Yes.
He said, I've seen you pre-season. He said, you can control the ball. And I was like, yeah. He said, you can pass it. I said, yeah. And he said, you can run. I went, yeah. And he went, just do them 3 things for me. And I went, yeah. And I go every time, even when I left Forest and I went to United, or I might be having difficult spells, I remember they were the basics for me. Control the ball. I know people laugh when I say it, control the ball, pass it and run. That was my career. That's what he said to me before my debut. Can you do that for me? And I'm absolutely.
But you're a box to box, and you scored a lot of goals.
Yeah, at Forest, my role was, again, and Forest, again, had the perfect players, whether it be Nigel, Teddy, Lee Glover, Tommy. They had strikers who were very good on the half turn. And Stuart, again, go back to Forest. Brian Clough loved centre forwards who got hold of it.
Yes.
Loved it. I know the games are slightly different. And I used to and all I did in Forest, I just ran. I just like a headless chicken. So they'd be playing the strikers. Nigel, if you look at any of my goals at Forest, I'm just running. And I'm gone. I'm not even involved in the build-up play, which I had to change, obviously, when I went to United. Different tests, I suppose. But Pierce, he wouldn't honestly whip it into Nigel. Nigel getting a half turn, and I'm gone. Nigel would just be picking me out. Lee Glover was very good. I don't know if you remember Lee Glover.
Yes.
Very good on the half turn. So Forest again was a perfect club for me. But Brian Clough was very tough on me as well. You know, as much as he gave me my debut and gave me great advice, it was a tough school in that dressing room. I found it hard sometimes. You'd be homesick, but he was also he'd be on my back, Brian Clough. He'd be on my back, and
that's absolutely fantastic. That's the marker of great management. Just keeping it simple. Keep your instruction and your communication as simple and as effective as possible. And that's the sign of a great player as well. If you look at all of the great players that have ever been, their roles were just so simple. So simple. Roy Keane, he can pass the ball, he can run, and he can trap it. I think that's what he said. And then that was that. He's a fantastic tackler on top of that as well. And that's Roy Keane's career in a nutshell. And he could do all of those things better than everyone else. You think of anyone else, any other players out there? Erling Haaland. What's Erling Haaland's job? Putting the ball in the back of the net. That's it. Kevin De Bruyne. What's his job? Assists. Assists. Get the ball, trap it, and pass it to someone who's going to score or score yourself. That's it. Peter Schmeichel. Keep the ball out of the net. It's not rocket science. Football is not rocket science. I keep on saying this. Why is no one listening to me? Anyway, back to Keane.
What, yeah? Yeah, because every time I went to see him, remember I was doing really well. I'd go back probably every 4 or 5 weeks. I'd say to him, if I go back, and he'd go, yeah, of course, I was doing well for him. He'd go, yeah, off you go. I'd go back for a few days, and obviously you'd family coming over. So it was all, the Forest stuff was amazing. And again, I'd no responsibilities. I was living with a couple of lads. I'd great freedom. Jesus, Nottingham was a nice place for a night out. I was playing the first team. I was getting a few bob. Happy days.
Well, I hope you liked that video. Roy Keane, he's just the gift that keeps on giving. I love Roy Keane's stories. He's so funny. He's so charismatic. He's so genuine as well. And I mean, what a career he's had. And you know, all the stories that he's got, they're so fantastically entertaining. It's brilliant stuff. And Brian Clough as well. Oh, what a manager he was. I mean, just imagine how good England would have been in the 80s and perhaps even the early 90s had he been manager. I think he famously said that it was a travesty that Glenn Hoddle only had something like 38 caps. And that just says something. He probably would have built that England team around Glenn Hoddle. But if you look at all the players England had back in the 80s, oh my God, what a team. They should have won the World Cup. I mean, if you compare the players that we had at our disposal compared to, say, Argentina, who did win the World Cup, it was a travesty that we didn't. Brian Robson, Gary Lineker, Peter Beardsley, Terry Butcher, Paul Gascoigne, Glenn Hoddle. I mean, that's just off the top of my head. Peter Shilton, Peter Reid. Fantastic players. And considering England dominated European football in the 80s, you'd think that we would have dominated international football. Anyway, that's Brian Clough. I hope you liked this video. Please like, share and subscribe for more content like this.